In this video, I'm going to show you how I mixed the acoustic demo of my new song called Perfect in GarageBand. So, let's go. Hi, my name is Pete and this is Studio Live today, where my goal is to help you create, record and release your best music. And right now I'm in the middle of a little mini songwriting series where I am writing and recording and finishing off a song. But I've reached an interesting point where I did an acoustic version with just acoustic guitar and vocal. I mixed this down, very simple mix, and then I actually shared it here on the channel. And you can check that one out. I'll link it up the top and down in the description. But I kind of like the vibe I'm getting from this acoustic mix. So whilst I've got all these ideas of other parts I want to add in, and I probably will still finish out this arrangement at some stage, I kind of am pretty happy with the acoustic mix. So in this video, what I thought I would show you is some final arrangement decisions I made around the current mix. So I've made some changes, I've written some lyrics which I'll catch you up on, and then I'll dive into GarageBand and actually show you some of the mixing that I did, because it's very simple, but I think it's actually very effective. I think the mix is sounding good without a whole lot done to it. So let's jump in now and get started. So when I last left you here, we had a few lyrics, we had the chorus written, we had the arrangement worked out, so the chord progression. There's been some changes to things. Here's the lyrics in their entirety there. You can hit pause if you want to take a read, but we'll go through them in a bit of detail in this video as well. So working around the whole life doesn't have to be perfect to be wonderful theme, I've filled out some verses and the bridge there based on that. I've also made some changes to the chord progression, which I haven't actually updated. So I'm looking here at my screen and I've actually moved some of these chords. The main changes are that instead of the F sharp minor, which I didn't think fit in there, I've actually changed that up to that F sharp chord, which I can't off the top of my head remember the name of. Is it augmented, diminished? My music theory fans will let me know in the comments here. So instead of just finishing there, I've now actually in the chorus part, in the verse parts, I'm doing the moving up to that. So let me just play the first verse here, just so that you can hear the difference between these two and why I chose this newer chord progression. So here's the first verse as it was. Life isn't always fair. That was the way it was. And what I've actually gone to now is this. Life isn't always fair. Everyone has their problems. So I just like the way it kind of works. Like here's the second line. It's easy to hide away and harder to find solutions. So hopefully, like I think that that's sounding better there rather than having that F sharp minor. I like how that kind of holds the chord there. So yeah, again, music theory people can tell me more about what I'm actually doing there. It's weird. I was talking to someone on the weekend. I was talking to David Thiessen in the interview I did, and we're talking about Rick Beato, who's one of my favorite music YouTube folks, and he talks about people back in the 90s and, you know, Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and Alice in Chains saying, oh, the way he used that augmented seventh note there in that scale and in that chord, that was amazing, really good songwriting. And I'm thinking, yeah, these dudes were probably just sitting around going, oh, that sounds cool. Let's play that. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they were excellent music theorists. So that's the main change we've got there. And then when we go into the actual the chorus, so the bridge part, we've come up to the pre-chorus. Sorry, not the bridge. Pre-chorus is the C sharp minor down to there, up to the A, and then back to the E, and then here hanging out on the A. And then again, instead of using like a B7, which I way overuse in my songs, I'm going up to just that as the B. So in the part where it says, say, sometimes the war is in your head. And then resolving down to the, life doesn't have to be perfect, to be wonderful, etc. So that's all pretty much the same. What I've then done is when the second time around the chorus, so life doesn't have to be perfect, to be wonderful. When we go into the bridge, it goes up to the C sharp minor again, but with a different sort of pattern here, where it doesn't. And I don't know what is left to I don't know my own words yet. Got to learn the lyrics here, though. And I don't know what else I can say, because that's not the right thing either. I'm not doing particularly well here. And I don't know what else I can say, because sometimes you hide away. And the reason I'm going through all of this is it's relevant to the mix that I'm about to show you in GarageBand, because you can hear there that I'm singing much louder, and it's really quite challenging in an acoustic song where you've got really soft parts and really loud parts to actually manage the to and fro. So managing that dynamics of volume when you've got loud and soft parts in a song, it can be tricky, which I'll show you in the mix. I'm getting all choked up. I'll show you in the mix how that works out. The other change is, well, not the change, but the thing that I've sort of cemented here at the end is that, like, after we do the really big bit there in the bridge, and as I said, I wanted to go to this epic 90s muted, palm muted chord thing, which I've got. Life doesn't have to be perfect, to be wonderful. So again, the guitar volume goes down, the vocals go down, and, you know, spoiler alert, we're going to be using some automation here in the mix, which I'll show you in a moment, that can help balance out those peaks and troughs of volume there. So that is basically it. Again, if you haven't heard the whole song, I'll link to that. You can check that out, and I'll put some more details there so you can play that one after. But now, let's actually dive into GarageBand and take a look at how this looks there and the mixing that I've done on this song. Oh, one more thing that I nearly completely forgot. You might notice, if you're more observant than I am, I have a capo, or a capo, however you like to call it, here on the 2nd fret. So all of the chords I'm talking about are actually up a tone, because what I found is that when I was playing it down on the E, it was just not sounding right, and I like it now. I think it sounds better on the guitar, but it also suits my vocal range a bit better, because in the louder parts in the bridge, it's actually pushing me up towards the top of my vocal range, which I think often sounds better if you're singing those parts a bit higher and you're having to push a little bit more. As long as you can still hit the notes, and hopefully I can, then I think that's sounding better. So I just wanted to throw that in there. If you're noticing that, hey, why is it a tone higher? It's because we've brought everything up. So let's now actually jump in and take a look in GarageBand. Alright, so here we are back in GarageBand on my iPhone, iPhone XS here, which is why it's a little bit widescreen today. So what I have done here is, you can see I've got my acoustic guitar here and I've got my lead vocal. Now, I set all these up in a previous video, and again, you want to catch up on the full series, click the link above, or it'll be at the end of this one if you want to go back and check out the others. I do have some drums in here, I've got some other vocal lead. Now, these were all of my different attempts at vocals, so I might play you a little bit of those if you like, just so you can hear what I sort of started out with and my sort of idea process as I went through. I've still got my bass down here, which I haven't added in, because what I basically did here is I recorded my acoustic guitar as a bit of a guide track to start with, and then I recorded my vocals, and then I listened back and went, this sounds kind of good. I kind of like this stripped down, laid back acoustic mix. So I thought, let's just mix this together and see what it sounds like. And it sounded pretty good. I still think I will make this a full band mix, because I think it is just itching to have some bass and some drums and some other guitar parts and backing vocals. But you let me know. Let me know in the comments what you think. Do we continue on with this and add those bits in there, knowing that it is now Songtember? If you haven't caught up on Songtember, check the link above. Yes, in September, we're going to be creating, recording, and releasing another whole new song. So I need to get this one finished off, or maybe just put it on hold for the rest of this month. But let's dive in now and take a look at what I've done with the mix of this track. So what I did to record this, just for a bit of a backtrack, is I laid down my acoustic guitar first. Now, this is an updated version. I deleted the old one, which was just a slightly crappier acoustic guitar. And then I came down here and I recorded a bunch of sort of scratch vocals to try and get the different parts of this right. So if we solo this, let's come in and listen to this. This is one I did walking around while listening to the guitar. Let's play this. You can hear the background noise. Life doesn't have to be perfect to be wonderful. So that's how I often sort of work through and get the rhythm and get the cadence and the tones of my melodies down, is I just sort of sing them while I'm walking around. I then came back to the studio and started performing it and trying to get a scratch vocal down like this. Life doesn't have to be perfect to be wonderful. And then continued on and just did it again and again. The reason I keep all of these is that there may have been little bits and pieces that I do in each one of these that I wanted to come back to, which I then did when I recorded my final vocal, which is this one here. And if we listen to what that vocal sounds like by itself here, we'll come to a section. Harder to find solutions, but I know. So you can hear there's some compression, there's some reverb, there's some echo and delay on there, which we'll jump into and show you in a moment. The guitar itself here, there's just a pretty standard recording using, both of these are using my AT2020, which is the microphone you see me use here on all my live streams, and I use it quite often, the Audio-Technica AT2020, probably my favorite new microphone that I've got in the last 3 months, thanks to Mike over at Creative Source for the recommendation. But let's take a listen to this acoustic guitar track. Sounds like this. And again, there's some, you can hear there's some reverb, there's some delay. And what I use here, as I showed you in a previous video, is I use the nice room as my default sound. So you can see here under the microphone icon here, we've got nice room as the sound that we go with. We've just had some compression and some room sound there. So when we come in here to our plugins and EQ, you can see here it's got track reverb, which is on there already, which is that room sound that we have there, a bit of track reverb there. And it's got the compressor here, which I haven't really played with. I haven't added much compression on this guitar, just a little bit of a tweak on the threshold there, just to drop it down to add a little bit more compression on there. If you want to learn about compression and plugins and EQ here in GarageBand, check out the video linked up the top and down in the description as well. There's a heap there all about how to mix here in GarageBand if you want some more detail. But we'll show you the mix that we've got here. We'll come back here to our screen. The vocals and the guitar together. So let's just come in here and listen to a quick passage here of what they sound like. Everyone has their problems. So I wanted this to be a simple mix, and the problem I normally have is I mix my vocals way too loud. And in fact, what I've probably done is use my clip gain technique to turn this down as well. Let's just tap on this vocal, tap again and tap settings. I haven't done it here, but I think what I was doing originally is I was trying to turn it up here, and I think I had it at around 3 dB there, and then I've brought it all the way back down again because, yeah, I tend to mix my vocals too loud and they'll end up sounding out of whack, something like this. Oh. Standard dress rehearsal. So I tend to have it too loud and have it around about there. And what I need to do is, knowing my natural tendency, I need to make sure I dial back. Don't wait to see the sign. And if you've got a vocal like that and you're like, well, it's not sounding loud enough, don't forget you can add compression to kind of bridge the gap. So if we come into plugins and EQ and we come to the compressor, if I wanted this to be a little bit louder and a bit more present without actually sort of boosting it too much, we can bring the threshold down here on our compressor. So let me show you that now. We'll hit play and I'll dial this threshold down and you can see what happens. Life doesn't have to be perfect to be wonderful. Life doesn't have to be perfect. So can you hear how that's not actually really increasing the volume, but it's using compression to kind of squash it a bit and make it a little bit more even and balanced. So we'll do it again. I'll leave it at 17 and then we'll come back here. We'll play this part again, because I think this is one of the key things that I do is using compression to get a presence in your vocal or in your track without overdoing the volume. So let's try again. Life doesn't have to be perfect to be wonderful. Life doesn't have to be perfect. So you can hear there that when it's around that minus 23 dB, it's sort of sitting nicely with the guitar. When it's down here at 17, it's too buried. As soon as we get up around here, to be wonderful, they it's too far in front of. So you just want to find the point where it's nicely balanced somewhere in between. So that's where I put it. And that's sort of what I do with compression. It's not a, people say, Pete, what do I set my ratio? You can see here, I've crunched the ratio here on this one, but it worked for this song. They're like, what's the ratio? What's the threshold? What's the attack? What's the release? It depends. And I know people don't like an answer, which is it depends, but you've got to listen to the track and then you've got to try and work out what's going to work for the song. So let's just finish off with the vocals here and show you what we've got. So we've used on this one, if we tap on the microphone icon here, what we've used here, we tap in the top left, the punchy presence. So that's what the basis of this is. So we've got some tape delay, some stereo delay there. But what I've actually done is I've changed this up and I'm using the lead vocal to get this tape delay, stereo delay on there so that I can actually play around with these. So we've got the compressor, we've got tape delay and stereo delay, which are over here, which is this one. So you can see that one is completely off. We can dial in a bit of delay, but I've got a little bit of the ambience on there. And if we want to know which ones of those are which, if we come over here and we tap that, you can see that the tape delay is the ambience there. The stereo delay is this delay here. So we turn that off, it goes off, dial it down. Yeah. So if you wanted to know the connection between these two, that's what it is that when you are dialing in something like delay here, if you come into your plugins and EQ, you can work out which one it is by turning it off and on and going, okay, that's my ambience, cool. Put that back to wherever it was there, and then that's my delay, cool, which I've got off at the moment. So what I've actually added though, and this is kind of my secret sauce when it comes to this, and I know some people say, oh, that's just, you don't do that, like there's got to be more to it than that, but I like these master effects. The echo and the reverb master effects really add to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn these completely off on my guitar and my vocals so that we can hear the difference. So if we come in here into my mixer, down the bottom here, the echo I'm using here is just the ambient delay echo, and I've got it just dialed in a little bit on that. The reverb, tap the right one, the reverb that I'm using here under Master Effects, if we scroll down, is just the default reverb. So I'm not really changing much up here, but just putting on these default sounds can really make a difference. Let's take echo and reverb off. Let's do the same for our vocal. Now let's play these two tracks together.
They say, but sometimes it feels that way.
So it sounds okay. You've still got a little bit of that because remember, we've got the plugins and EQ, we've got some track reverb there on the guitar, we've got some of the delay there on the vocal already. But what I like to do is start playing back my track and just dialing in, like play both of them together, dial in a bit of echo and reverb until it just sounds like it's sitting nicely in the mix. So let's do that now.
You will not always win, and sometimes you lack direction, but you gotta stay the course, 'cause you're gonna face rejection, and you don't.
Okay, so I think that's about where I would put this for this song. Now, my compressor is just a little bit too high there. I'm just going to dial this back a little bit. Again, I have to fight my natural tendency to push my vocals too loud. So let's just bring the threshold back on that one a little bit. So with these dialed in here, what this is doing is, because we're using the same echo and the same reverb across both of these, a little bit more reverb on the vocal than the guitar, it's basically gluing them together. It's basically putting them in the same space. And this is a tip that I give all the time, which is if your tracks are sounding too separate or too dry, just adding in some echo and some reverb, some very basic stuff here, and you can use these ones, you can use a third-party plugin, you can use it on the actual tracks itself, whatever you like, but just adding these bits in can really make a difference. Let's just hit play again here.
Don't always know that there's a battle ahead. Sometimes the war is in your head. Life doesn't have to be perfect
So again, let's just turn both of these off again and just take another listen to that.
to be wonderful. Life doesn't have to be perfect to be wonderful, and
And again, yeah, you may like it, you may not like it, and let me know your thoughts on this song. But yeah, try this out because again, if you've got a dry mix or if you've got something that's not sounding like it's glued together, this can really work well. Now, what about EQ, you might be asking, and then we'll dive into the automation and finish off here. So EQ wise, I haven't done anything to the vocal. So I don't tend to EQ my vocal unless I feel it needs it. So let me know if you disagree or if you think it does need it, but we could enhance the vocal here. We could turn the treble or the bass or the mids. And remember, all an EQ is doing is turning up or down the volume at certain frequencies. So don't get too hung up and confused about EQ. All you're doing is turning the volume up and down at a particular frequency. So it's as simple as that. What I have done is on the guitar, I tend to find that recording guitars with a condenser microphone, and we'll tap on the visual EQ here, you tend to get a little bit too much in the mid and the treble. So all I've done here is just dropped these down a little bit on those. Let's come back here. I'll just solo this guitar and I'll show you what I mean here. If we hit play on this one. So that's it as it is now. I'm just going to boost these just so that you can hear some of the frequencies that I'm pulling out here. So a lot of it's that sort of scratching sound, the sort of pick scraping, and the tones there that I don't actually want in there. So what I tend to do is just pull a little bit off around that 1K and then drop here at the top end so that you get maybe not quite that much. So you're still getting enough of that treble sound to give it a bit of brightness, but it's not over the top. And then when you bring it back in with your vocal,
Time and make everything seem fine. So remember.
and therefore it's not fighting with the brightness that you get on the vocal there with your guitar sound as well. So yes, I know it's very simple. A lot of folks are underwhelmed by how I mix this, and what I wanted to show here is that mixing doesn't have to be a complex process, especially when you're only mixing a couple of different tracks as I'm doing here. But the one final thing I did want to show is the automation on these tracks. So automation is something that I use a lot of, and for vocals in particular, it's really important because as I mentioned in the opening there, and you can see here just by the waveform, the vocals are low here, they're pretty quiet, they get a little louder, and then when I come into the bridge and the final chorus, they get super loud. So they're almost twice the volume there, or twice the gain level there than they are back here. So I needed to use some automation to make sure that this is going to work well. So let's finish off by talking automation. Now we're going to go through quickly here, so if you want a complete video about automation, check the link up above and down in the description. But what I want to do first is take a look at what I've done with the guitar, because this is a simple level of automation. We'll tap right here on the guitar icon, not over here on the blue. Don't tap over here, that's not going to work. Tap on the guitar itself and tap automation. And what you can see here is that the only automation I have is a fade out right here at the end. So the reason that you want that is that we need to fade out this guitar, because take a listen. If I bring this up, so if I drag this automation curve back up, take a listen to what the guitar sounds like here at the end. There's that final chord, and yes, you can hear Pete moving and squeaking his chair, so we're just going to bring that down. Now, in a perfect world, Pete should have not actually moved for a good 10 seconds after playing that final chord. This is a good key thing on your vocals and your guitar and any live instruments. Please don't do what I do. Make sure that you stay completely still so you don't get that creaky noise that you then have to manage afterwards. So now, though, with it actually fading down here with automation, there's that chord, and you barely hear that squeak because it fades it out. We do the same thing here with our lead vocal. Here's our final lead vocal line.
Oh, to be wonderful.
Fade it on down. Make sure it's all faded out. So that is one way to use automation, is to fade out. Now, GarageBand has a built-in, fade out. I never use it because I want to pick exactly where and how quickly my tracks fade out. And sometimes you may have one track that you want to fade out more or less than another. So if you want complete control, use automation. But let's now come in and take a look at the automation on these vocals, because you can see here that I've made some changes here. And again, I'm not going to go into exactly how you do this because I've done that in a previous video. I'll just show you the concept of what we've done. If we zoom all the way out here, you can see the parts where we've dropped the volume. So we've started with it a little bit louder. If we tap on there and we tap and hold, that's at 0 dB, so that's kind of at where we've started with Unity. I've then considered a bit of a change here, decided not to, left it the same there, but then here we've dropped it down by 1.2 dB, so just a very small amount into this second section. So let's hear why I've dropped the volume there.
Life doesn't have to be perfect, to be wonderful.
So because that chorus was louder, I wanted to drop that off there. And now for these last couple of lines, I've brought it back up here.
You will not always win.
So they're quieter again, but then in the second half of this second verse, I actually get louder again. So once again, we're now down at 1.5 dB. Let's take a listen to this transition here.
Lack direction, but you gotta stay the course.
So you can hear there that part, because I'm singing louder, and throughout this whole section, it's dropped down a little bit. And then in this section here, I get really loud. So we drop down again. Now we are down at minus 3.2. So let's take a listen to this part.
And I don't know what is left to say, 'cause sometimes you hide away.
Now what I've also done there is I've got myself a bit further away from the microphone, which is why it's not as much of a difference. So that's the other tip here, is to avoid having to do too much automation. Make sure you're not too close to the mic to start with, and when you're singing louder, take maybe 5-10 centimeters back. Just bring your head back. You'll see professional singers do that, is that they'll sing their close bit right up on the mic, and then when they belt it out, they get further away. The reason for that is that they don't want to overdo it, overload it, and clip on that. But then as we come here into this last little section, you'll see we have to bring it back up to almost Unity gain again. So let's play this part.
So remember,
That's our final part, and then
life doesn't have to be perfect.
so again, because we're being quiet, we bring it up, and then finally we bring it all the way down because I start really belting it out down here.
To be perfect, to be wonderful. Life doesn't have.
And this is another reminder to make sure that when you're starting out, that you sing your loudest part when you're setting your input gain. I've showed you how to set input gain before on your interface or wherever you are recording your microphone, and make sure it's lower than you think. Don't be hitting any more than 75%, because you can see here in these louder parts, I'm getting pretty loud. I'm getting pretty up there, and I'm close to clipping in some of these, like this section here.
To be perfect, to be wonderful.
So I'm not clipping, but you can see the difference between that and some of the quieter parts where I'm singing back here is quite significant. So there's a lot of dynamic range here, meaning I need to make sure that I'm dialed in low on my input gain. So we still want a healthy signal, but you don't want to be clipping or overloading it. So there you go. That is what I wanted to show you here, but I would like your feedback and your input now as to how I build this track out. I'm thinking that we probably need to bring some drums back in here. Let's just show you what they sound like.
Life doesn't have.
So maybe we kick it along with some drums, maybe we add the bass, maybe we add some of those additional acoustic guitar parts that I'd planned to put in here, and some backing vocals. I think that might work well here, but you let me know what you think would work well with this arrangement now that you've taken a look at it. Thanks again for watching. There's 2 more videos linked down below. You can subscribe to the channel by clicking or tapping on the Studio Live Today icon in the top right corner, and I'll see you on the next video.